Hi, everyone. My name is Barry Rook. I'm the Executive Director of the National Campus and Community Radio Association, so the NCRA. You're joining us here for our Earshot Distro training session focused specifically for musicians. The program itself is used to help artists and record labels and so on get their content from from themselves or their organization into the hands of the radio stations and their programmers directly. It's a program that is run by the National Campus and Community Radio Association specifically for its members. And we have developed this whole system sort of from scratch. And it's grown quite well. So our goal as a not-for-profit who supports not-for-profits is to help the sector be able to do what it needs to do as easily, effectively, and cheaply as possible. So you'll note that our fees are much, much less than other services, and much of our members have picked up ours as well. I do have a PowerPoint and a Prezi to sort of go through. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen as we get into that. If you have questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. Eloisa or myself will try to answer those questions. There'll be opportunities as we go along as well. And hopefully at the end, we'll also have an option to answer any questions for you time-wise. We'll be aiming to keep this presentation under an hour. It usually runs about 45 minutes or so as we go through the process. So once again, thanks so much for joining us here. We'll tell you a little bit about us. What is distro, how to use Earshot Distro, what are the best practices, getting more out of the stations and so on as well. So a little bit about who we are. So again, as mentioned, I'm Barry Rook. I'm the Executive Director of the National Campus Community Radio Association. I've been involved in radio since I was 15, and I've been here at the NCRA for the last 8-9 years now, coming up to it. Eloisa is joining us here as well. Eloisa is our marketing and outreach coordinator and the individual who does all the work with our Earshot Distro side of things for support and sign up and all of that. So if you have questions when you reach out, you're most likely going to be chatting with Eloisa, and she's going to provide the walkthrough of the training program itself today once we get into the specifics of it as well. So the NCRA as an organization, we're 126 not-for-profit radio stations all across the country. Each station is independent. We help them with doing all sorts of things like training and education and services and lobbying, etc., but they're all their own independent organizations. They either have a campus, community, or indigenous license operating on AM, FM, or online only. Typically, each have staff or volunteers who oversee the content that comes into the process, and it's all, again, different. And in many cases, independent hosts are the ones that select what goes on the air for unique radio shows. In other cases, content is very similar to that of the commercial broadcasters, where one person or a group selects content that goes into rotation and so on. So, and depending on what format, these vary from quite close to commercial to things like we have country only based stations, nostalgic based stations, youth based stations, quite an interesting array of different types of programming, which is what makes our sector really quite interesting and unique. The NCRA is located all across the country. There is also access to for this in French for our Francophone partners who are in Quebec or outside of Quebec, and the official language minority communities as well. So they do have access, and the system is fully bilingual, which is great. So not only do our members have that use, but so do yours. So do they. I do want to just quickly touch on copyright and tariffs, just so you understand how that process works. We highly recommend that if you are using our system and you're creating content in Canada in general, you should be registered with SOCAN. SOCAN will help with collecting royalties. Our radio stations pay royalties on an annual basis. 1.9% of their total expenses goes towards royalties each year. SOCAN collects that information. They collect what is played on the radio stations and then turns around and pays the money back to the artists. We do in this sort of triangle that you see there, there's a little bit of money that means from the artist going to our stations, and that's to pay the fee so that we can make this whole process operational. And like I said, it's not nearly as expensive as some of the others. So there are alternatives to what we're doing. The first original way is the emails and mailing in CDs. You make a CD, you mail it, it's processed, and then it's archived. We find that the mailing to the processed part is about 50%, and then it shifts itself down again by another 50% or more to even get into the archive system. So stations are not using CDs very much anymore. They've moved to a full digital system. That's one of the reasons why we put this process into place. And of course, with COVID, people were not able to access the systems as well. So we've seen quite a large growth process. In short, 1 or 2 stations still will accept CDs. They almost all prefer it digitally. You do have the opportunity, of course, to email stations. There is no direct mailing list to everyone. You'll have to sort of find your way through the process of who's a programmer and what, and how to send all of that information. We have best practices that will be shared at the end of this document or at the end of this recording, as well as on our website to help you with that. So don't worry too much, but you can do it without the use of us. There's also 2 commercial opportunities, DMDS or Yangaroo and Play MPE. Both offer opportunities for you to upload content into a system sort of similar to ours. They will then send it to the radio stations, and the radio stations may or may not access it. I will tell you that those 2 services, we have less than a dozen stations combined with the 2 of them that actively use that service. It's not something that fits for us, even though they have a commercial wing of it. Or a campus and community not-for-profit wing. Not many stations utilize those services. Just wanted to be transparent about that process. Cost-wise, as I mentioned, we're quite low in a cost point. We charge $50 an album, which is between 8 and 20 songs, or $7 a song before any discounts. There are some referral codes, there's some coupon codes, etc. And we can provide you with a referral code if you're watching this at the end if you haven't gotten one before. If you're already signed up for the system, we can still add something in as well, or you can reach back out to us, and if you have a code, we can add it in, and you get some discounts on there as well. And then from time to time, we'll throw out some special coupons or discounts, usually tied with specific types of programming that we're aiming for to try to help support that genre or sort of theme of music to get out there a little bit more as well. As noted, all the revenues from the system go back into running the system. We are a not-for-profit. We're not generating revenues for anybody else. What we're trying to do is enhance the system and grow as we go forward. So some of the benefits of this are earshot charts. So if you're able to upload content in the system and you've got a couple of stations that start playing your content, you might make it onto our national charting system. And why do you want to get onto the charts? Well, it's great. SOCAN, or not SOCAN, but Factor, for example, uses the charting system as part of their placement for what category your artist or band is classified as. And hopefully this can get you, if you get charted, you get a bump up into the higher section. That might be the difference between $5,000 to help run an album and $25,000 or $50,000 to go tour. So important to be noticed there as well. So the charts are a really good system for that. We're also in the process of trying to automate our charts and our SOCAN fees. Currently, stations report twice a week or 2 weeks a year. So if you get played on our stations, but it's not during reporting period, there's a pretty poor chance that you're going to get noted and you probably won't get paid by SOCAN. We're trying to change this along with a whole bunch of other digital solutions. It's just taking a bit of time to develop that because we're a small organization and always looking for grant funding and other ways to be able to build that capacity. The charts page, for example, looks like this. If you go to earshot-online.com, you'll see it plus dozens of others. It also lists the radio stations that submit to it and other types of charts. So something that's worth taking a look at to see if you're on there. There's a good search function as well. And if you have charted, I would highly recommend you take a screenshot of where that is and promote that out. And then if you go ahead and apply to Factor or other places, utilize that as a sort of a response as well. So right now, as I mentioned, this is available and it's being translated. It has been translated into French. We're thinking about expanding to the United States, but right now it's available only for Canadians. You don't have to have your CanCon requirement, but you do have to have essentially a Canadian credit card. It will only accept content that comes from Canadians. And we'll see if we are able to expand that a little bit later, but right now our focus is on the Canadian side of things. We do have podcasting into the system as well as music or finished show syndication distribution. Those two have been added as well. And we'll go over what the podcast means if you want to allow your content to be podcasted. We are in discussions with Library and Archives Canada to possibly make this a national archive as well, since right now we're sitting at almost 28,000 songs on the system, which is great. And we're constantly working and improving and developing. So we're already undergoing our next set of technical upgrades to help with smoother transitions and all that kind of stuff as well. So we're going to do a quick walkthrough here. Eloise is going to jump in and show you how the upload system works, how the reviews and rating system works, what the genres are, how you can communicate, and what some of the technical skills are. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen here. And Eloise, if you want to jump on and take it away, that'd be great.
Thank you, Barry, for covering all that. Thank you, everyone, for joining us for the training today. I'll start sharing my screen and then we'll go over a couple of things that will hopefully help you get through the system. There you go. So this is the website. Hopefully you'll have seen it before. It's earshot-distro.ca. This is what you'll be looking at when you first sign in. And to sign up, I'm assuming everyone has signed up already, but if you haven't, I'll do a quick run through how you can do that. You'll sign up at the top, and then when you scroll down, you have two options. You have an option to sign up as a label and distributor or an independent artist. The only difference between these two is if you sign up as a label, you'll have the ability to manage multiple artists. If you sign up as an independent artist and then later on you want to be able to create your own music and then your band's music, we can change that in the back end very easily. So no worries if you sign up for something and then you want to switch it after. So yeah, you just click sign up, and here is where you create your name, email, password, all of that. And if you have a referral code, which is what Barry mentioned before, you can include that in here. But again, if you have signed up already and you have later received a referral code, we can also add that in. So you can just let us know. Barry mentioned it, but if you email us at support-distro.ca, support@earshot.ca, that will be me helping you guys out. So if you have any issues, you can always contact us there. So let's start walking through what uploading looks like. So you go log in, and then this is sign up. So we're gonna sign in. So this is what your page will look like when you first sign in. There's many different ways of how you can start doing your upload. You can do it here when it says upload songs. The way that I go about it, I find it the easiest, so I'll go toward that way, but I'll run through the different ways you can do it. So everything you need is at the top here: songs, artists, and releases. So we'll start with releases. If you want to create and if you want to upload an album, if you want to upload a song, it all starts here. You can create add a new release. Here you will include the name of the title of the song or the title of your album. So this will be your album. My album is called, we'll just do as Earshot, just for today's sake, and then the artist. Now, here in this part, you should have already added your bio as an artist. You could create multiple, you can do a compilation of different artists. But for now, let's say you've already created your artist bio. We'll just go compilation. And then you choose the cover of your album. Let me choose something really quickly here. There we go, uploaded that. Release type. This is where you will decide what you're uploading. So if you're uploading an album, it is $50, like Barry mentioned, 8 to 20 songs. And if you're uploading a single, it's $7. So let's say it's just a single. And then here's where you choose your genres. We have a multitude of genres and subgenres. We'll do alternative, and let's say alternative rock. And even after that, we have more hyper genres. Maybe we'll say it's ambient pop. Here, this is very important. By default, it will check that your music is radio friendly. It just means it has no swear words in it. By default, it will check that. But if you're uploading something that it is explicit, please make sure to uncheck that and say so in the title. You can just write explicit in parentheses. And then here you can write the city, maybe where your band is located. You can leave it blank and just leave the region just Canada-wide. So it's completely up to you. Here you will decide the system release date. This is the date in which what you're uploading will go up to the system where stations will be able to view it. And the public release date is when this upload that you're doing, both saying the single, where your single is going out into the world. Now, these dates could be the same date, completely up to you. But if you want to upload something to the system a week before it goes out into the public, there you can here say, I'm uploading it today, but my single comes out actually on the 30th. That just lets the station know that you're uploading it early for them. So maybe when they play, they can little, hey, this song will be out on the 30th for everyone worldwide. Same thing if you're doing a back catalog. So if you can leave that blank if you're uploading a song or an album from the previous years or like a few months old. So it's totally up to you. And then lyrics and composer, you can add that info in. Distributor, publisher, you guys, the basic stuff to fill it out. And then licenses. This is what Barry was talking about podcasts. We have a unique part about Earshot is that you can make your your music available for use in podcasts. Now, there's very few places where you can find music to play on podcasts. It has to be royalty free or given permission by the artist. So by you checking this license, you are giving permission to podcasters to use your music in the podcast. And you can always check the license. Station must contact you to coordinate and agree before to arrange if they can play your music or not. And you can also choose to have your music played in the background for advertisements. You can select all of these licenses. You can select none of them. Completely up to you. And we have a unique characteristic when you do an upload. We want to bring minority voices forward or voices that might not have been heard, just for more discoverability purposes. So you can self-identify as Black con, queer con, femme con, indigenous con, or frank con. Again, this is totally up to you and your discretion to self-identify if you wish to do so. And then this part is the last section when you do an upload, which is the MAPL compliance. This just lets the station know that your music is MAPL compliant, which means it's Canadian music. So I believe it is one or two that you need to check off for it to be considered Canadian content. We do have some content that is uploaded that is not considered Canadian for one thing or the other. All of these are selected no. You can still upload to the system. It will just reflect to the stations that it is not MAPL compliance, just for stations to be noticed of that. So I think all of that here is good to go. Let's go save. There we go. So now your upload has been created, your release. So your release will be here, down here. And then you will be able to edit it. And here is where you'll be able to upload the song files. The song file that we use are WAV files. They just have the highest quality of music, the highest quality possible. And all the metadata that you fill out is what the information the stations get. So make sure your metadata is accurate to what you're uploading. So here you would just create the file, choose your WAV file, upload, and it will load here a little bit. Hopefully it doesn't take too long. In here, since we're only uploading one file, but I will show you how you can edit the release of your songs. So if you're releasing an album and you have an order of your songs, sometimes your songs are number 1, 2, and 3, or maybe they don't have a number. There you go. So I'll go back to that in 1 second. Go to releases again. Right here. Now you will see the test file is right here. If there were multiple songs in here, you will be able to move this. I mean, you can see I'm moving it up and down. So if you have a release that has multiple songs, which if it's an album, it will, you can move them up or down and edit the order of the songs to whatever you wish it to be. You can always do this even after a release is done. So if you go through everything and use the payment process, but you realize, oh no, my songs are out of order, that's not what I wanted, you can always go back and edit it. So I'm just gonna click save here. And how you edit, it's the pencil button. Yeah, that's how you're able to edit everything. And I talked about about including an artist. But if you haven't had an artist before, or if you are a label and you manage a different artist and you want to add a new one, just very simple artist at the top. You go add an artist, name, alias if you want, a bio, picture, and you can leave this once again blank. You can just leave, if you have a band and you don't have a specific town in mind, you can just leave it Canada wide. But if you want to get specific, you can include the city and then the province. And then we'll go to songs. This is where you will be able to see all your live and searchable songs. These are songs that we have uploaded in the past, so that's how you can see it. And songs waiting metadata is where you would want to go when you have just uploaded a file. Because again, since you're uploading a WAV file, it doesn't have metadata attached to it, which is why you need to add by yourself. So just go, if you upload a song and you can't find it, just always check songs waiting metadata, because it's just probably waiting for a little bit more information to be more accurate. And again, just click the pencil edit button right here. And here it is. So we're gonna select an artist. Here we go. It has all the information I filled out before about the hypergenre. This is where you can add your ISRC numbers, your bits per minute. All this information, it's really up to you to add. It's not required by the system, but it will definitely be helpful for stations to see. Lyrics, composer. Again, the clean content is automatically by default checked. Moods, maybe the mood of the song, maybe it's a happy song, a sad song. Publisher and or label, the licenses again. I didn't check any licenses when I did the release, so it will reflect here that I didn't choose any. Same here, tags, you can, similar to the mood, you can just check whichever ones you think fit the vibe of the song. And you can add lyrics here, you can copy and paste, or you can choose a file right here as well. And then reflected as well will be the Maple compliance. So I did all that, and we're gonna click save. And now you will see it right here. Songs awaiting payment. This is where your songs will all rest until you go through the payment process. Now you can schedule releases ahead of time as well. If you are doing the upload process, going through all of that today, but you want the release to go out next week, you can do so in the system release date that I mentioned earlier. If you are looking to just do the upload, but you don't have time to go back to it, you can just leave the songs there. The information, all of that will not go away. You can come back to it later and then do the payment process. So now I'm just going to go quickly through the payment process. It's simple enough. You'll see again here under songs awaiting payment, but you can also, if you go back to your dashboard at the top, it will showcase it here that you have songs that are ready to go out, but you haven't paid for them yet. So it will show you in red. So first thing right here too, and then it'll bring you back to the same page. And then we select this, the song that you want to go out, select payment, and here it shows you it is a single, $7 per song. You continue. And here, if you have a coupon or referral code, it will reflect over right on this page, and then your billing address. And like Barry mentioned, it is asking you the province and your postal code, which is why also Canadian credit card can only be allowed. So if you're wanting to try the system out, but you don't have a Canadian credit card, we do have a workaround with that, but you have to email us to coordinate those details. But after that, just fill out this info and then complete purchase. And just like that, your song will be out into the system for all the stations to see and browse. Another unique function that we have, which is that Barry mentioned, is the outreach to stations. And here in the messaging and outreach, you will be able to click on outreach, and it will bring you down to a list of stations that have given the permission to have their information out to you guys, to the musicians, to reach out to them. So these are the stations. You will see it right here. They give out their music preferences and their email and their tracking hours. You can go through all of these. There is 107 stations or so that are giving out their info. Here, to make your search easier, if you are an artist that releases pop music, you specifically want to reach out to stations who play pop music, so you don't waste your time reaching out to others. So if you see I wrote pop at the top, it narrowed down the search from to 19 entries. It filtered out 51. So there you go. There isn't an easier way to do this than to copy paste every email, unfortunately, but at least this way you have a narrowed emails that you can reach out to. Maybe you've seen some of these stations play your music before, maybe you can filter out that way. So that is completely up to you. And then this is kind of everything that goes through about uploading and how to, oh, here, I'll go to something again. On your dashboard, once you upload a song, it will show up here that it will have been live into the system. And here you will be able to see your interactions, which is great. So here, an artist that we have worked with before, you can see their interactions of who listened, who downloaded, and who clicked on support. So here that you will see 8 downloads, 10 listens, 1 support, 19 interactions total. And again, if you have maybe had some great interactions in the past with a station and you have noticed that they haven't reached, maybe they haven't listened to your album this time, you can maybe contact them and be like, hey, you listened to my album last time, I have a new upload, give it a listen. In that way to reach out to stations, it gives them a direct link to where your release or song is. It will be here on releases. You can click right here and copy share URL, and that URL that you copied, you can paste that when you're emailing stations. It will give them a direct access to listen and download your music. Just let them know they need to be signed in. Sometimes stations get those emails and they get the link and they're like, oh, the link didn't work. They just forget that they need to be signed in. So they just need to be signed in and then clicking that link again, it will take them directly to your upload. You can do so here for the releases, or if you just have one song, you want to share that with them too. You can also just click on songs at the top, click on the song that you want to share, at this link right here. at the top, it will say song and a specific number. That's the link you share with them as well. So there's two different ways to do that. Um, Whatever works best for you. But I would suggest doing the release part, because if you have more songs, then that way they can do it. They can reach out to you as well. Stations can reach out to you through messaging at the top if they want to talk to you, an interview. Um, but again, you can always email them as well and maybe reach out yourself that you want to do an interview with them. I believe that is everything covered right now. If I will stop sharing my screen and see if there's any questions in the chat. Let's see.
I did answer the question about the BPM. It's helpful to have, especially electronic or urban music, because those genres often use beats per minute to match. Beyond that, it's not overly important. The ISRC code, again, not mandatory or required, but very easy and helpful for fingerprinting and tracking and so on. And again, if you're registered with SOCAN, you're going to want to have that information available. And there's more on the link there for you to be able to see. The only other thing I think I would add in is that if you are, you do have the ability under the account information to add users to be able to log into your system as well. So if you were just to click on the top right-hand side where it said your account name, there'll be a section there where you can invite others to use your account for uploads and so on. So if you happen to be a label and you want the artist to upload their music themselves, or you have somebody else that's staff-wise that's helping out or whatnot, they have the ability to do so as well. Carla asked, is it too early to send an album a month before it's released? Will they forget about it? These are all things that you need to consider about the process. Keeping in mind that content that goes through the system is designed to be made into the hands of the radio station so they can put it on the air. You can pre-schedule anything you want for as far ahead as you'd like, and it will become live on the system the day I think it's 12 o'clock or at some point overnight, the day that it's scheduled, if you don't put it out live right away. And then the stations or the broadcasters can access, download that content and play it away. Some people will release their content in advance of when the public release date is there. Some people will tease an album by putting a single out before the album comes out a month or two later. It's really up to you to decide how you'd like to be able to do that. But keep in mind, once that release date is hit, it goes live into our system and it's essentially available for radio stations to use. So if you're trying to push for something of that nature, think about your timing, because if the idea is you want people to go ahead and, access it through another space or purchase it through wherever else you're doing, if it's exclusive and it's not available for another month and the host doesn't make any comments on it, you may be missing a couple of opportunities. Mark also asked, is summer a slow time to release an album? School's out at that time? Yes and no. So there is typically a little less programming that happens at the stations over the summer, especially our 45 campus stations. They are still operating over that period of time. So I can't give you an actual number per se, but I would guess it's probably 20 to 30% less popular over the summer, just because there's not as many people doing that type of programming. But also it means that maybe there's more free time for students who are doing programming and they pick up summer shows. So keep that in mind in sort of both ways. It's really up to you as an artist to determine what's the right sort of steps as you go forward from there. I'm going to jump back in quickly here to some of the best practices that we were talking about already. So for an email, you saw that Eloisa showed how you could copy the link either directly from the URL if you're at the song link, and that's how it will show up. Or if you use the releases button and copy URL, you'll get a similar one. This is a great example of someone who sent it along to us saying, here you go. And if I'm interested, I can click on it and grab access to it right away. When you're sending something along, there's a variety of things that you should be doing, whether this is tied into Earshot Distro or not. If you are, for example, sending links, don't send by links. Technically, a radio station needs to receive content from someone that's giving them the rights to put it on the air. And that's what this system does automatically, just like you saw the right to be able to use your content in podcasting. When you sign up, if you read that waiver at the front, it shows that you're giving those rights to the broadcasters to use it. Stations hate getting links for buying because technically they're not allowed to. And also many of our stations operate on shoestring budgets. There's just no way they're going to be able to make that purchase. We encourage you send along a one sheet, something that sounds like what it sounds like if you're trying to do that, any pronunciation for songs or artists. If you're uploading content that has lyrical advisory to it, we recommend you upload two versions. You have a radio friendly version and you have an explicit version. And when you type it in under the song name, you write explicit or radio friendly / clean. For all that kind of stuff. And as I mentioned, our system inputs the metadata that you put on into the MP3s when it's downloaded by a station, if they choose to use that system. If you are directly sending content to the stations in another way, not through ours, metadata is important to be in the digital files. You wouldn't believe how many times someone downloads an album and all it says is track 1 through 12 with no name, artist, anything, and it says our new album. And the host or the station goes, "This is amazing. I have no idea who this is," drag and drop into the garbage bin. So keep that in mind as well. The using that messaging and outreach option, when you click on the outreach, it does take you a different window. You didn't see that with Eloisa because it would have taken you to a window and she was sharing the screen element, but this is what you would see. And we had talked about being able to search, use the filter system to be able to find who, what, and it will tell you what station, where they're located, what formats they accept, how to contact them, all those different types of things as well. Those are some of the best practices. We do have more listed on our website as well. So if you're at earshot-distro.ca, you'll see that there's a full report. We took about 2 years to develop what are some of the best practices in the sector. And it outlines some of the documentation we talked here and a lot more in detail. So if you're looking for what are the best ways to get contacts with, this is the information that we got from our members and from users over multiple programs and outreach sessions and all this kind of stuff. So that's the best information we can provide at this time. And unfortunately, there is no email all radio stations. That goes against the anti-spamming rules and so on. That's why we put this system together as best as possible. If you are looking for other ideas when you're outreaching, ask about an interview or a tour. There are opportunities of hosting a show. Earshot-daily.ca is a show that picks content from our Earshot Distro platform and has a half-hour show every day. If you go to that website and ask AJ, who is our coordinator, and say, "Hey, can you play my song?" He'll put you on one of the shows, which is great. There's also a process in Earshot Distro for radio stations now to upload finished radio shows. So it shares music, but also completed radio shows for syndication. If you are sending content out, some of the other things stations might be looking for are like intros or liners. "Hey, you're listening to XYZ radio. My name's blah, 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 and this is my latest song." Those are great because they love to drop them in before or after or over top of a song as well. Good idea to tag people on social media as well. Just don't get too over enthusiastic around that. If stations want swag, t-shirts, stickers, etc., just be sure to ask beforehand. And one of the other things that we recommend you do is set a Google alert for yourself as well. If songs and programming gets played, that will often capture it in track listings, and you'll be able to easily track to see who was there. So that takes us to the end of the distribution sort of training opportunity. I'll stop sharing my screen right now. We can answer some questions if anybody has it. And if we want, we can also take a quick peek into taking a look at how the broadcasters see the content that you've uploaded as well. Does anybody have any questions around our system that they'd like to ask right now? Not
Also,
seeing.
there you go.
uh,
So you're saying that each chart needs to have your name also in it?
What we were saying is, if you're using our system, it's going to automatically make sure you don't run into those problems. If you are sending content to radio stations through emails with links to folders or whatnot, just make sure that the metadata that's in your MP3 is fully up to speed. There's nothing worse than, I said, getting a folder that says new album, and when you open it, there's 12 songs that say track 1 through 12, and there's nothing else in it. And that's a very easy way to just have your content skipped completely, because they need to know all that information. But it's built into our system that information is connected at all times.
Yeah, when you fill in the information like for the song titles, you just have to, what Barry was saying, if it's explicit or clean, you can put in parentheses. But you don't need to include your name in the title of the song. It will automatically do that for you. And one thing I did want to mention was you can edit the release and songs at any point. Like I said, if you find that the release, the order of your songs were wrong, or you want to attach the link, or maybe you didn't have your ISCR number yet, you can add that afterwards. The only thing you cannot do after a release is live is add another song. So that is the only thing. If you do a release and you make it live and then you realize, oops, I didn't add one more song that I wanted to, unfortunately, there's no way to edit that. But yeah, that's one thing that I want to mention. You can edit it at any point.
Couple other quick questions here before I show you what the station sees. Mark asks, are there plans to make digital distro available in other countries? We do have agreements with our friends down in the States. They're very interested in this process. The challenge that comes into play is if we're going to be offering content coming into the system, there's a big challenge when it comes to taxation rules, because each of the states are on their own process. Whether or not they want access. I believe, Eloise, there's a handful of stations from the States that do have access to this system already. And we're happy to be able to export that great Canadian content down to them. Carla asked, does explicit mean swearing only? The answer for that is not always. So sometimes content that's going out into the song talks about, challenging or, different types of situations and whatnot. It may not necessarily mean foul language. And it might mean, something else. Examples include things like rape or hate songs and whatnot. So you have to be really, really mindful of those types of reference. It doesn't mean that you can't put content in that showcases that type of language. You just have to you have to provide information so that the station doesn't get caught with it. There's a really easy way. If suddenly a station grabs your song and something in there is not appropriate and they play it at 2 p.m. and go, well, we're never playing that song again. If it slides in without that type of information. Whereas if you have some information and background behind it, you might actually find that some of the hosts of the radio stations are looking for content that talks about specific situations or issues as a way to have that discussion. And what the host is responsible then for is providing that acknowledgement of why it's being played to its listeners, and they can go ahead and play it. So I hope that answers some of your question there as well. If anybody else has questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. I'm going to quickly show you what the station or the broadcaster see. So when I land, you can see that there's a little bit of a different dashboard. There's the option to review later. There's a list of all the programs, and you'll see this interactions thing seems sort of familiar to you as well. And then there's also these campaigns for public service announcements, which we're going to load in. The radio station has the ability to upload programs like you have for songs. They also have the ability to upload public service announcements. I won't go over the details, but it looks pretty familiar to you. See it there. They also have their messaging system. So you could see in this case, we're chatting back and forth with a couple of people about content. This is how the radio station could reach out to you. And we encourage the radio station to fill out a form, which then goes into that database that Eloisa showed you as well. There's a referral program. There's some help stuff. And as I showed you on the side here, there's some organizational settings and account settings as well. Where the magic really happens is under search library. So if I click search library here, it's going to pull up all of the songs available without any filters that are put into place of late. So we can see that there's 28,000 songs in the system, and all the songs are broken down by release. As we said, you have to put a release out, you put your songs on top of it, and you make sure they're associated with an artist. That's how that process goes. And you can see, for example, here's Dawn River. Dawn River put out a single called Laughing. They didn't take off the 24-bit master comment to it, but okay. And if I wanted to, I could take a deeper look into that song. There's the info about the artist. There's the info about the distributor. If I wanted to, I could review and leave a comment. And you'll notice that all this information up here looks very familiar, that when you would have uploaded. So we can see that Dawn's song here is MAPL compliant. It doesn't say where they're based out of on the song itself, but the artist would tell you where that is. I can rate it. I can add it to review later. I can add it to a folder. I can make comments on it, read any reviews. I can download it, say I've supported it, etc. And it provides all that other type of information here as well for you to be able to do. The other advanced option in the search, like we said, is filtering, which is fantastic. And this is why we want you to be able to sort of identify things. So let's say if I choose under here, I'm looking for a variety of different sort of people and listeners, I can just make these changes. So let's say I'm looking for only podcast, and I'm looking for what we call femcon. So these are songs created by women. And if I do a search here, it's now going to pull up and filter down to just over 2,000 songs that are considered podcast friendly and created by or for women. And then you have the ability to, again, dive deeper into finding those different songs and having a look at what it is, plus seeing the album as a whole on the upload there. So that's the basic system from the broadcast usability side. And I just kind of wanted to share that as well. Eloisa, do you want to answer any questions that might be on the chat?
Well, someone asked, is there a way to indicate which ones are the singles or the host play, whichever ones they like? I'm assuming you mean when they're in the system. I don't know if you noticed, but on the right-hand side, it says in parentheses the numbers. If it's a single, it'll say one. If there's multiple songs, it'll say multiple songs. I will say stations in host overall do lean towards albums, just because they take the same amount of time to process as a single. But if there's an artist that they really want to check out, they will definitely go for a single that they already like. But that's how they know if it's a single or an album. Or if I send them an album, if they were to click on the link, it will show you what Barry just showed you. So it will show you, it will look the same, but if there's one song, it'll have one song. If it's an album, it'll have multiple songs. But in the link itself, it won't be able to look any different to them. So they will have to click it to check that.
And if the idea is that you want to highlight, for example, what songs were considered like the single of the album before the album comes out or whatnot, you can indicate that in the album information, because there is the opportunity. Like we suggested, song 1 sounds like this, song 4 is this, song 8 is that. It's always good to highlight what you think are the more popular songs or what could get more interest, so that when the artist or the broadcaster or the station music programmer, whoever it is going through it, they know which songs on an album you're thinking of would be the best fit for them. There is no way to put a single out and then have it also show up in the album. without doubling the process. So a lot of the times what will happen is someone will put a single out as a teaser to the album coming out and then release the album on that day. So let's say, for example, I put one out now, my album comes out June 1st. I've got a month and a little bit with a single out there, and I've said, hey, there's a full album coming June 1st. And then on June 1st, you see the full album with the single again. You will have to double the cost for that single. So, you will pay $7 for the single and then $50 for the album. And it will be available twice. It's not too big of a deal on our side of things. But that's one of the ways in which a handful of artists have done a way to sort of tease an album by putting a single out.
Yeah, and like I said, if you reach out to stations and you're sharing the link just to the album, you can mention it in the text, being like, the spotlight song from this album or the top single is this song, and you can let them know, or you can even copy a link to the specific single if you want to send that out too, just so they have direct link. That's why it gives you the freedom to do so. But hopefully that answers your question. Did anyone else have any questions?
If not, thank you so much. We'll stop the recording and we'll drop a little coupon code in the chat. I'll just go find one for everybody so they can get some extra uploads for cost points in a bit for sticking around. So that's great. And if you do have any questions, support at earshot-distro.ca is the place to go. We'll remind you that website, earshot-distro.ca, does have a full support section. This video and others are available on it. And there's also a handbook that you can walk through a step-by-step of how to be able to access anything. So if you missed anything on that upload challenges, it's all right there as well. So thanks everybody for connecting. Really appreciated. Once again, my name's Barry and from LOASA here at the NCRA. Thanks for joining.
Thank you, everyone.